Another senior Tory is on the way out. Former Minister Tim Yeo has lost his bid to be re-selected in the Suffolk constituency. He's represented for 30 years. It appears local activists were frustrated that he didn't spend enough time there. But he's not the only party veteran to face a deselection battle. Part 2 of what's being dubbed the constituent spring, the perhaps unlikely rising up of Tory activists desperate for revolution. Tim Yeo is the second senior Tory MP to be deselected by his local party in a matter of days. Anne McIntosh, the MP for Thirsk and Malton, was booted out by her local party on Friday.
I do not intend to be thrown aside by a small group. It is for my constituents as a whole to dismiss me if they wish to do so.
Both constituency associations claim their MPs simply haven't been doing enough, spending too little time and too little energy in the areas they're supposed to represent. Critics have taken Anne McIntosh's deselection as further evidence of the party's supposed problem with women, after a lengthy line of female Tory MPs announced they'll leave Parliament altogether this year. But others point to the rising power of constituency associations, which are increasingly ready to flex their muscles, less tolerant of incompetent or uncommitted MPs. Whatever the reason, any MP who doesn't have particularly good relations with their local association may well have good reason to be nervous. And we have Tim Yeo, the Conservative MP for South Suffolk for now, here with us. Mr Yeo, this is a victory for democracy, isn't it?
Absolutely. I mean, I wanted all my party members to have the chance to take part in this vote. They have done. It was a knife-edge result, but the result is clear, so I will give my successor every possible support.
It's a failure by you, though, isn't it? You wanted your constituency to judge you on your record. They did that, and they found you wanting.
Well, obviously, I would have preferred to be the winner tonight, but I knew that this was going to be a very close thing. I'm much encouraged by the fact that all the 6 other MPs in Suffolk wanted me to stay on. They thought my experience was valuable to them. I'm encouraged by the fact that the Prime Minister, the Chancellor of the Exchequer, the Education Secretary, a lot of other people said that what I did in Parliament, which they can see at first hand, let me just finish the point, that they said it was valuable to have people of experience in the next Parliament.
And so that was
one of the reasons why I decided
because you were, as you say, endorsed at the highest level, yeah. David Cameron, George Osborne, Michael Gove, who's in favour in other areas of refreshing people at the top of the tree. In a way, this is a good sign for the modern Tory party, isn't it? Because it shows that it's not an old boys network. You know, David Cameron can come out in favour of you, but if the constituents don't think you're doing a good enough job, that's it.
Yes, of course, it's absolutely right that the constituency party should have the final say on who their candidate's going to be. I fully support that, and that's why, as I say, I shall give my successor every possible support. But I do think it's right also that there should be some experienced people in Parliament who can take perhaps a slightly more independent view. I think some of the issues which arose during this campaign were my support for the gay marriage bill, my very strong support for more action on climate change. These were issues which were not necessarily the same views that my active supporters took.
Yes, but the problem was for your constituents that you just weren't a visible presence. They talked about you as being invisible. They said you were never in the constituency, therefore you couldn't possibly support your constituents. What's the point of being an MP if you don't represent your constituents properly?
A tiny handful of my opponents said that.
The majority voted to deselect you
A much larger number of my constituents, even the people who were taking part in this vote today, were 600. That is less than 0.1% of the people in Suffolk. I'm absolutely clear that the record I leave behind of having stood up for example, stopping pylons being built across the constituency, that was a victory achieved last November. Stopping the tolling of the A14 was a victory achieved in December.
What you voted for.
The new health facility in Sudbury, which will be opened later this year, that's an 8-year campaign which I've led. So those are issues of which I'm very proud. I'm also proud of the fact that I saw my role as being one in Parliament to stand up for what I thought was right in Parliament.
You talk about Parliament. You spoke in 11 debates in the last year, well below average among MPs.
You will know, this Channel 4 ought to know, that that is a statistic which pays no attention to the work of select committees at all. I chair my committee in public every Tuesday morning. A couple of weeks ago on this programme, you highlighted the fact that the energy bosses were absolutely reeling after the interrogation they got from me. I think my constituents know, if they take an interest in these things, they know that I'm standing up for them.
Do you think that your constituency felt, you know, the party's too liberal, things like gay marriage, green issues, they just don't want it?
I think some of the older activists in my constituency certainly took that view, and of course they're entitled to, but I think that the job of the MP is to do what he or she thinks is right in the national interest. I believe very strongly that we need to be a leader in responding to the problem of climate change.
So the people are supposed to follow you? They clearly didn't follow you on this.
No, absolutely not. I entirely respect the outcome of this ballot, but it won't stop me, even in the time I still have left in Parliament, for standing up for what I believe to be right. I think it was right to change the law about gay marriage. I think it is right for Britain to be a leader in addressing climate change.
What is the role of the MP? Because you're suggesting you should lead and people should follow, but they didn't follow you. They didn't agree with you, perhaps, on these issues.
Absolutely. Clearly they did not, and I accept that entirely. But I think it's one of the advantages of having a blend of MPs in Parliament, some older ones who are not trying to climb up the ministerial ladder. They will speak up for what they believe is right. That is what I have done. That is what I will continue to do. And I know
irrespective of what your constituents wanted?
Not at all.
Was that the problem?
Not irrespective, but I will exercise my judgment on their behalf, and I will not necessarily feel I always have to be in tune with the 30 members of the Executive Council. I will. In the past, I've secured very good majorities because the majority of ordinary voters have recognised that I've done a very good job in Suffolk.
This is an illustration, and Macintosh deselected on Friday. This is an illustration of growing rigour among constituents who think if we don't like an MP, we're going to push them out.
Well, it may be. I think, as I say, it's important that these decisions should be made by local party members. But you can't say there's a trend just from two people. We'll have to wait and see what happens in the next few months.
Do you feel the need to apologise to constituents for the disappointment they feel, the fact that they felt you were out of touch, you didn't represent them?
I don't feel any need to apologise for that. I believe it's quite clear from those people who've written in, who've emailed in, who've posted messages on my website, a very large number of constituents, and indeed the messages I received today. I'm quite clear that the majority of my constituents feel that they've been well represented in Parliament.
So the people who voted against you, the people who voted to deselect you, you say they're not representative?
No, I'm not saying that at all. Actually, very nearly half of those also voted to keep me. But of course they're entitled to their view, but I will continue for my remaining time in Parliament and afterwards to go on speaking out on the issues which I believe are important, globally important, such as climate change.
Tim Yeo, thank you very much for joining us. John.